you have these things. It's like the butterfly effect, this, all, it changes all these things. Well, at some point, things are too attenuated. These things are not connected to each other. Things aren't foreseeable. And
Right.
so maybe there was a duty, maybe there was a breach, but if the damages are completely unforeseeable,
Right.
then
We are the armed attorneys. Today we are talking to you about a lawsuit that has recently been filed against RMA, a manufacturer of body armor, in regard to an individual who used their armor in an act of mass violence. We're going to talk to you about what the federal prohibitions on body armor are. We're going to talk to you about the lawsuit, what's alleged, and what's happening. And finally, we're going to talk about what the duty is of manufacturers and sellers to prevent people from using their products unlawfully. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button. And today's episode is brought to you in partnership with RMA. They are under attack in this lawsuit right now. They make a really fantastic product. You might have noticed. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that until the end. Please stick around.
yeah. But to understand this just a little bit, because of this suit, I think you got to have a little bit of background on just kind of an overview that there are very few laws affecting body armor. Now, we have two different levels we can look at. We can look at the federal level, we can look at the state level. I can characterize state level prohibitions kind of generally what we see pop up in states, or purchases of body armor with the intent to commit some kind of crime. That would be a prohibition on the person buying the armor. And then the other one we see is certain categories of people, like felons. Felons may be prohibited from possessing body armor. Those are the two big categories I see pop up over and over. So we see pretty limited restrictions on the state level when it comes to body armor. Now, that's the state level. The second one we have to look at is the federal level. This would be overarching. This is the area of law that the federal government has decided to occupy. And we have this prohibition. It's in 18 U.S.C. 931, and this is entitled Prohibition on Purchase, Ownership, or Possession of Body Armor by Violent Felons. And I'm just going to read this law to you. It's extremely short, just so you have an idea what's going on. It says, except as provided in subsection B, it shall be unlawful for a person to purchase, own, or possess body armor if that person has been convicted of a felony that is a crime of violence as defined in section 16, or an offense under the state in which would constitute a crime of violence under paragraph 1 if it occurred within the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States. There's one big exception to the application of this. If you are considered a violent felon, if you have a note from your employer saying you need it for work, then that law doesn't apply.
I will say that was news. I mean, I haven't really dug into the federal body armor law that much because it just doesn't come up that much,
No.
right? Yeah, most people we talk to are not convicted felons, so we just don't deal with it that much. The employer note was news to me.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
It's pretty neat.
Now, what I will say jumps out to me as being a striking difference as opposed to, when we look at the transfer, possession, and ownership of firearms, we look at body armor. When we look at guns, there are prohibitions on the transfer. We see all these different kind of transfer prohibitions. We do not see that kind of law imposed on body armor companies, or they don't need any kind of special federal license to sell body armor. So this is uniquely different from firearms.
It is, although, there are so many body armor manufacturers who do not sell directly to the general public,
Yes.
right? Most are selling manufacturing for military, for law enforcement. So, I can't say that I am surprised necessarily by this kind of lawsuit because it's just the next thing coming. I mean, once you start, right, I think RMA is fairly unique in that they do sell directly to the general public, and we're just going to start seeing. I mean, we're seeing the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment tactic at this point going forward is just going to be sue the hell out of anyone that you can.
Yeah,
Right. And so it's not that surprising.
No, I mean that's the trend. Firearms accessories, firearm ancillary firearms products, or maybe products that might be kind of complementary. That's a trend that we see seeing. It's not good. Now, what happened here? Well, this is in connection to the Buffalo shooting incident. Won't go into the details of that because YouTube does crazy things when we talk about that.
Yeah.
It was terrible, terrible, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of the substance of the complaint here, that the attacker in this situation had purchased body armor.
Yes. And so, and this is, and you always feel so sorry for, I mean, the families of the shooting victims, right? Because like I cannot imagine what that feels like. I can't imagine what it's like to be trying to make yourself whole again in the wake of that kind of loss. But I think we also have plaintiffs' lawyers who generally are pretty scummy. And I say that as a criminal defense lawyer, so it should mean something, right? Because, like, as a on the scumbag scale myself, I think that, like, I can put these guys, higher on the scumbag scale. But they will sue anytime there's a dead body. They will sue anyone who has insurance, any corporation, any kind of deep pocket. And it's like, I feel sorry for the families. I don't feel sorry for the lawyers because the lawyers, in part, are the ones who are like, "Ooh, here's all the people we're going to sue." And it's like, ultimately, whose fault is it that all of these people died?
Yeah, well, I mean,
One guy.
this is every town for gun safety. They're the ones spearheading this
Yes.
action, and I mean the substance of their complaint against RMA Armaments is that they negligently supplied the body armor to the attacker in this situation, and didn't go through what they call reasonable vetting. And so, what are the kind of things that we look for? So it's a negligence claim. What's the kind of things we look for in a negligence claim?
Well, we are looking for duty,
All right,
a
so
breach. Oh, you want me to go through? I'll go through the whole thing right now.
well, yeah, well, let's talk about what does a
Yeah.
duty
What
mean
is
in that?
negligence? Well, so I'll just say you've got duty, you've got a breach of duty,
Yep.
you've got causation, and you've got damages. There's 4 steps to negligence. So, what is a duty? Why don't we start
A
there?
duty is when we look at how we are situated to each other and we say, hey, do we have any kind of special relationship? Do I have any kind of control over you? What would an ordinary and reasonable, prudent person situated in that scenario, what type of care would they have towards this other person?
Right. So, there are lots of duties. I mean, landlords have, elevated duties to tenants. If you own a storefront, you've got elevated duties to the invitees on your property. There are,
If you're a manufacturer, you have a duty not to have manufacturer's
right,
defects.
exactly. And then just generally speaking out in public, Richard and I have a duty of ordinary care to one another. So,
Yep,
like, if I know he's walking in front of me, I have a duty not to throw impediments in his path so that he falls down and hurts him,
sure.
right? That's not within the ordinary care. So we have duties all the time, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to foresee everything that your actions or inactions could possibly cause to someone in a harmful way later down the road. So you have to have a duty. You have to have breached that duty.
Yeah, so we establish what the duty is,
Yeah.
and then you fall below that duty.
Exactly. And then that duty has to have proximately, that breach of duty has to have proximately caused the injury, right? You've got the injury and the damages. So, and it has to be reasonably foreseeable. So the question here is,
Yeah, when we say proximate cause, think, but for this, that wouldn't have happened.
right. So, good like law school example is, I cause a car accident and Richard is injured in the car accident, right? Well, I may have been negligent in my duty if I was driving poorly, and Richard might be able to sue me and recover some damages. However, if Richard's wife has to miss a job interview the next day because he's in the hospital and she's taking care of him, that is not reasonably foreseeable in terms of my breach of my duty. So I'm going to be responsible for Richard's injuries. However, I'm not going to be responsible for his wife's damages in her lack of wages because she missed her job
Yeah,
interview, right? That is
there's this
not
nexus,
foreseeable.
and
Yeah.
it just gets more attenuated as we go further along. It's like, is it the Sound of Thunder where the butterfly wing stops Hitler or something? I don't know.
I
I've
don't
totally
know.
misquoted all of that,
I don't know.
but you have these things. It's like the butterfly effect. This, all it changes all these things. Well, at some point, things are too attenuated. These things are not connected to each other. Things aren't foreseeable, and
Right.
so maybe there was a duty, maybe there was a breach. But if the damages are completely unforeseeable,
Right.
then
Exactly right. And but Thank you for everyone who has just listened to two criminal defense attorneys try to explain tort law because we just don't practice it every day. It doesn't roll off the tongue as quickly for us as firearms law. So apologies to all. Okay, so yes, so we've got this lawsuit. We have, unfortunately, I think the most recent action is that the judge denied the motion to dismiss as to RMA.
Yes.
Right. So the lawsuit continues to be ongoing. Um, it just grinds my gears that these people not okay, back that up.
Scumbag plaintiffs' lawyers are not people.
No, they are not. And it just you have to respond to the lawsuit.
Yeah, that's very frustrating because, I mean,
Like,
we look at RMA for a moment. Duty, I would say absolutely minimal.
absolutely minimal.
If they have a duty, it's going to be to the folks who are using it, to
Correct.
defend themselves, to keep themselves safe.
It should be functional.
Yeah, it should be functional.
That's a duty they have.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Breach, it's such a low bar. I don't know how you go below it. Causation, but for RMA being tangentially related to all this stuff, would this have happened? I don't see any foreseeability here.
Plus, we have this idea of intervening or superseding criminal acts.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
no, there's great cases that say crime can happen at any time for any reason, and it would just be ridiculous to connect folks with criminal actions.
correct. So you sell a product, the product works as advertised. You cannot control if someone uses that product in order to do a bad thing. That is the exact reasoning we have behind the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act,
Yeah,
which is currently being gutted by the courts in a way that really upsets me.
it's
But
why Ford is still in business even though they're drunk drivers.
correct. Correct. So anyway, again, and this is, with our, I think, due sympathy for the people who were victimized by this horrible human being, right? That is not the fault of the fire manufacturer. It's not the fault of Google,
Yeah.
of Reddit, of RMA, of any of the other parties named in this lawsuit. And I think it tells you a lot, not just about like the scummy plaintiff's lawyer, but when you've got an anti-gun group behind the lawsuits too, is it really about helping the families be whole, or is it about
No, it's about burdening the
taking
Second
down the
Amendment.
Second Amendment?
Yeah, instead of holding the criminal responsible, they want to hold the entire responsible community responsible.
Exactly.
Now, today's video and discussion was in partnership with RMA. As you see, Emily's sporting some incredible plates over here. You see, they're getting dragged into a lawsuit that they really shouldn't be dragged into, and they need your help. And the way that you can do that, and by supporting the show, is supporting them. So if you're in the market for this stuff, 100% made in the USA, RMA Armaments, we'll have them linked in the description below. They need your help in this fight.
Yes, I mean it's a company started by like just real people, former law enforcement, former military, and it's great. They are actually the only direct to consumer manufacturer of female plates. And I can tell you, I mean, I've been wearing this around all morning. Richard knows I'm walking around the office. It's great. It's really, really lightweight. It is curved. I will say they might consider making like a curvier version of it, but it is comfortable. It's great if you've got your battle partner in your life who might need something like this. I'm loving it.
That's so romantic.
Isn't it?
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing and hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please visit our friends over at RMA. Give them a shout. Go pick up some female plates. These are fantastic. And until next time, we're the Army Attorneys.